Hello, peoples. It is finally time for me to rank all 10 of the Best Picture nominees. I could not do this ranking for a while because there was no way for me to see The Zone of Interest. I really didn't want to buy the digital. I really wanted to see it in theaters, but unfortunately, none of the theaters were showing it, and I had to watch the movie, so I watched it digitally last night, and I have finally seen all 10 of the Best Picture nominees. Tomorrow is the Oscars, so here I am ranking them the day before the Oscars. I feel bad for The Zone of Interest, particularly with this list, because, all these movies have had some time to stew with me, except for this movie, and so I'm just placing it there sporadically. I'll say before we get to the Zone of Interest, keep that in mind, no matter where it ranks. So yeah, I like all these movies. I don't think there's a single bad movie in the bunch, so please don't get on my case. Well, number 10 and number 9 are probably the only ones that like aren't 4.5 out of 5 for me, and we'll talk about those. All these movies are great. Just keep that in mind because particularly number 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 all could be any of those numbers. It's really like down to like a decimal or the thinnest line of hair of like where the placement is. Okay, so coming in at number 10 is Bradley Cooper's Maestro. I was the biggest advocate for this movie. I really loved A Star is Born. When I saw this movie for the first time and when I reviewed it, I was like pretty much very positive on it. When it comes to aging, this has not aged well at all for me. Because the first time I saw it, I thought some of these things in the back of my head were things I would get over with a rewatch, and I watched it again, and none of my issues were really fixed, and I was almost making excuses in my head to why till I should like this movie because I was really on top of the Bradley Cooper being a great director. Now it just kind of comes off as a big bait. And I really hate saying this is Oscar bait. When I first saw the movie, you can go back to my review, and I said this, and I said that I didn't really learn anything about Leonard Bernstein that I didn't already know by Googling his name twice. And that's a very unfortunate because, when you have a 2 hour movie, you want to get some depth and some realism in there. And this movie just didn't really do that. It's just a skim of a life that is just trying to win awards. That's where I feel bad for Bernstein. Cooper tried, but I just don't know who he had in his heart. Was it Leonard Bernstein or was it him winning an Oscar? And I was such a big fan of A Star Is Born, so that's why I think I was probably in denial when I reviewed the movie. And that's the thing. This is not a bad movie. This is an incredibly made film. I think it's shot really well. I'm not just saying, oh, it's shot nice because it's black and white 4:3. It's actually, I think, a well shot movie. Carey Mulligan's great in the movie. The makeup prosthetics on Bradley Cooper look great. It's overall really technically great. And I think the second half of the movie is a little bit better than the first half. I think the first half is where I think a lot of my main issues come in. And I think when the second half starts to get into like the drama of the character a little bit more and starts to explore Leonard Bernstein in the ways I kind of wanted the movie to, it felt like it ended. So it kind of didn't necessarily get what I wanted out of it. I think when I watched it, I was just more so, yes, Bradley Cooper directing, and it's a well-made movie. And my complaints about that, I just think I brushed to the side a little bit more loosely than I should have, and I should have been a little bit more harsher on the fact that it doesn't necessarily feel like a movie made for Leonard Bernstein. It feels like it's a movie made to win awards, and that's something that you really shouldn't be doing when you're making a movie like a biopic. If you want to make a piece of fiction, go ahead and make your bait, because it's like there's other movies on here that can be classified as Oscar bait, but it's a good movie as well. When you're trying to respect a person and you're doing an Oscar baity type thing for that, it kind of questions your motivations a little bit. And I wish this weren't number 10 because I was really looking forward to this movie. At least I liked it. It just wasn't A Star is Born. I think A Star is Born is a mile better. Coming in at number 9 is The Zone of Interest. Just watched this movie last night, and so that's why it's so hard for me to place it. And this is really where I felt like putting it, and I hate to say that, but I will ultimately say I thought this movie would really be like my thing. I really, really thought it was a great concept, being stuck with the Nazi family, with just being a fly on the wall, experiencing their everyday life, and just kind of how do they cope or how do they not cope with the horrible things that's happening around them. And the societal commentary that comes with that is so gripping and disturbing. The way that these characters feel normal is what makes it all the more gripping and disturbing. For me personally, the movie explored that, and then the movie had another 45 minutes to go. And I know that we're telling these stories, but it's so abstract, and you really don't care that much for the characters. You're just more so fascinated with their mindset. So you're fascinated for like the first half of the movie, and then the second half of the movie just kind of keeps on going. And I'm just like, okay, where is this exactly showing me, and what is it trying to tell me? And and I got everything with that. A lot of this, does need to sit and resonate. By tomorrow, oh, it can be number 5. It's just, to me personally, with my experience of the movie, the second half, once I kind of got past what it's trying to do thematically and filmmaking wise, and how it's trying to make us feel, particularly like with the sound design, which I hope wins at the Oscars tomorrow, because I do really feel like that does deserve to win at least sound. I really wish this movie clicked with me more. I thought it'd be 100% on my letterbox log said I thought this would be 100% my thing, and it was really like 80% my thing. Like, I think it's a incredibly well made movie. I think Jonathan Glazer has like a really like cool atmosphere that he's able to create with this type of situation. He did similar type of atmosphere with Under the Skin with Scarlett Johansson, which I also liked. Overall, Jonathan Glazer isn't a director that I'm like, oh my god, I'm in love. And I think honestly, I'd put Under the Skin in this on the same bar filmmaking wise, while this one's a little bit more intriguing. But both of them kind of just like lose me somewhere in the mix. I hate putting it this low because I had really high expectations for this and I really wanted to see it, but unfortunately it didn't quite live up that much to me. But I still think it was a really well made movie. So, anyways, coming in at number 8 is Yorgos Lanthimos, Poor Things. This is my first Yorgos Lanthimos film, and so when I saw this for the first time in the theater, I had absolutely no idea what I was getting myself into. And it was the same day I saw Aquaman and Lost Kingdom. So I did the Aqua Poor Things double feature, as I called it. And that was quite the experience. Obviously, Poor Things was a lot better than Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom. This movie was a lot harder to watch. And not because it's all sex scenes. I'm not someone who's like aggressively anti-sex scenes, but when you get into these disturbing areas with the movie and what it's trying to say, it's hard to watch. It's not necessarily a movie I can see myself watching with a crowd like I did I can't talk for the first time. I have this coming out on Blu-ray in the mail in a few days. Watching it by myself with not kind of going like, are you guys seeing this? I'll be a little bit more entranced with the movie and what it's trying to say. I think everything it's trying to say is really genius. It's just not necessarily a movie that I can go find myself and go, yeah, let's go watch Poor Things. I think it's an excellently made movie. I think Emma Stone is phenomenal. I think Mark Ruffalo is particularly phenomenal in this movie. It's something you've never really seen him do before, and I was just purely in awe with his performance. The production design, the costumes, the hair and makeup, everything filmmaking wise is really fascinating, and the movie isn't boring. It's not a boring movie at all. It's always moving. I think maybe, I know I just said it's not boring, but maybe 15 minutes could have gone in the mix. But I do think it's an incredibly well made movie with a lot of really detailed themes and messages that really needs to stew with you, and does, I think, benefit watching by yourself and not in a crowded theater. So it's a funny movie, by the way. It's hysterical, and it has one of the funniest movies, if not the funniest movie on here, I believe. I'm looking at the nominees. Yeah, well, actually, there's 2 movies that are maybe funnier, or 3 movies. I love how I just said that, then I completely ate my own words. Coming in at number 7 is American Fiction. I really liked American Fiction. I think it has a lot of really solid themes going on there. My only really issue with the movie is that sometimes it's poking fun at the baity type of stories that people gravitate towards just because they think it's putting light to something, even though it's kind of like a baity type formula. While this movie kind of makes fun of, like, how do you call it, like the Oscar bait, this movie does fall into territory sometimes where it does kind of feel like Oscar bait. So it kind of has to tread that line very carefully, because it's an awards movie making fun of like awards things. Well, this movie does sound the type of like awards things, but beyond that, that's my only really small nitpick with the movie. Besides that, I really liked this movie. I think it was hysterical. I think Jeffrey Wright was fantastic. I think the commentary is really genius, and like I said, sometimes they veer off into a somewhat contradicting path because it is a movie. What it's trying to say overall is some really smart ideas. I think what's his name, Cord something, what's his name? Cord Jefferson. Cord Jefferson has a lot of smart ideas in his head, and I think he does a phenomenal job getting them out on paper, and it's most likely win Best Adapted Screenplay tomorrow. The best joke of the entire year is in this movie. There's one joke in this movie I thought was so funny. If you've seen the movie, you kind of probably know what I'm talking about. I think it's the funniest thing I've ever seen in my life, and I think the performances throughout really good. This got nominated for score, by the way. I don't know how that happened, because it's not like the score was notable at all in my eyes. When that nomination happened, I was like, okay. Yeah, I think it was a very solid, funny movie. Coming in at number 6 is The Holdovers. The Holdovers is now looking at a lawsuit or a plagiarism charge. Before I kind of made this list on Letterboxd, but if that is true, I'll lower it to number 7 and put American Fiction above it. I haven't looked into it at all, so if it's like complete stupidity, then I'll keep it where it's at. But I think The Holdovers is a very honest look at the holiday season, how people feel, and it really tunes into emotions that movies really don't explore. I think it's stacked with a great cast, and Dominic Sessa should have been nominated for the Oscar, but unfortunately that didn't happen for Best Supporting Actor, of course. And Paul Giamatti is great. Divine Joy Randolph, it gives one of the best performances of the entire year. Last year, I mean. Yeah, The Holdovers it's a very reach out and touch it movie. It makes you feel like you're there in this type of Massachusetts atmosphere. This was in fact filmed in the place where my grandma grew up. To see the movie with someone who's familiar with the area just makes the movie feel all the more cozy than what people already feel like it is. This movie takes place in the 70s, and it really embraces that aesthetic. It looks and feels like a 70s movie. If you show this to somebody 30 years from now, they'll probably guess it was made in 1970. It doesn't look or feel 2023 at all, and that was a really great thing to do because I think it really helped with the aesthetic and just the overall quality of the movie, because you don't look at Stranger Things and you think, oh, that looks like it was made in the 80s. No, it looks like a 2017 impression of the 80s. This movie looks and feels like the 70s because it didn't really try to be in the 70s. It just was the 70s. So props to that. Coming in at number 5 is Barbie. I loved Barbie. I thought it was one of the best movies of last. These next 5 movies are all in my top 10 of last year. You probably, if you remember my list, you probably be obvious what's to come for the next of the list. Barbie was a very smart movie and made a lot of really genius moves in making it that people underlook. And that's particularly what it does with its audience and how it divvies up being a serious midlife crisis drama and also being a Barbie movie. There's a lot of really genius things going on in here that people are just kind of brushing to the side because they're almost used to the Barbie being Barbie. I just really wanted to point that out. It's a movie that can appeal to anybody who watches it. If you're a 40-year-old guy with no family, if you're a 40-year-old guy with a family, if you're someone like me, if you're my 60-year-old grandma, or if you're my 25-year-old brother, like, it's a movie I think anybody could watch and not be like eye rolling at it because it's a genuinely funny movie. It's not just like trying to be kid friendly. It's just a funny movie in general that anybody can laugh at it, and that's thanks to the really sharp and really well written lines by Noah Baumbach and Greta Gerwig. I think it's an incredibly well made movie, even though it still maintains that Barbie type glitter. Production design is phenomenal. The way that they captured the Barbie playhouse and all that stuff, the costumes are great. Just a really well made movie with really thoughtful themes, but still maintains its target audience. I think there's a lot of genius work going on in this film that is probably overlooked at this point because of how much hype it is beyond it. It really is a really well thought out film that I think should, honestly, I hate to say this because it makes me sound like the biggest Barbie fan in the world, even though I don't mean to. It really feels like a movie that should be studied upon as to make a film that can appeal to a mass audience but also be pretty deep at the same time. Coming in into number 4 is Past Lives. Past Lives is a heartbreaking film that people were watching in June and getting emotional damage from, and that was probably my most favorite thing to watch. Movies like this don't necessarily make me feel sad. I rarely cry watching movies. I am a emotional repellent type person when I watch movies, unless if I'm watching the third act in Dune Part 2, but maybe I'll cry watching that. But my past lives, I'm just going like, yeah, I'm not a very emotional person, and so when movies can provoke emotion out of me, it did a really good job. I don't want to say this movie, like, oh my god, moved me, but it's an incredibly well told story with a lot of really well told themes that's just so simple. You know, Barbie is a movie that it's about Barbie and Barbie Land. You can do a lot of things with that thematically because, you know, you have almost everything to play with, a whole set of dolls and you're nothing but imagination. Not Poor Things. Past Lives is a more so abstract look in an intimate way at these two people who are just trying to reconnect, but it doesn't work out. Oh, spoilers, sorry. It's something that is hard to necessarily latch on to, but Celine Song tells this story in a very, very human way to the point where you really can't just take your eyes off of it because it feels so human at its core. And I know Celine Song said it basically kind of is partially autobiographical, which shows that, yeah, sorry, Celine. I'm curious who she is, if anybody, in that script. I'm very curious. Obviously, no one dare ask that question because it's too much of a deep question. But like, I'm curious deep down inside. Yeah, Greta Lee is fantastic. What is the guy's name? I have to look it up now because he's really good too. Teo. I hope I'm saying his name right. Teo is fantastic. Oh, the husband, he's great too. Now I'm looking up names. John Margo? Is that him? Yeah, that's him, John Margo. I hope I said his name right. I'm horrible with names. If you know anything about my channel, if I say a name wrong, don't judge me for it. I'm just bad at names. The three leads in this movie are all really good, and honestly, all probably should have been nominated, but unfortunately that didn't work out. But it's one of the best acted movies this year. For it being a directorial debut for Celine Song is just one of the most impressive things. Well, I think the best director lineup needs to be expanded to 10, like Best Picture was, because it really feels like 5 nominees are all good, and now I'm just like, what about this person? What about this person? They should have been nominated. I mean, the Oscars make the rules. You already made picture 10, make director 10, and like acting 7. I feel like there's so many movies made to the point where that feel like so many great performances are not being recognized at this point, and people there's only more movies being made. So I really feel like we need to go to like 7 for acting category. Coming in at number 3 is a movie that wasn't number 3 until I very recently rewatched it, and that is Killers of the Flower Moon. Killers of the Flower Moon, the first time I watched it, I felt that 3-hour runtime. I thought it was a great movie, and when I did my top 10 of the year, it still made like number 7, I believe, but now it's definitely, I think it's like number 4 or number 5. I think Killers of the Flower Moon is fantastic. I really liked it, and the 3.5-hour runtime went by a lot faster when I was able to watch it on Apple TV and not in a standard theater. I wanted to go see Killers of the Flower Moon in IMAX, but the IMAX theater basically broke when I went to go see it, so I had to go sit in a standard theater, and that was not comfortable and really bad to probably see a 3.5-hour movie when I could have saw it in a premium format. So watching it at home a few weeks ago, just able to watch it was, it's not a happy movie, but it was a lot more comforting to, be able to just sit here versus that crappy seat I was in. Not that the movie changed too much, it just went by a lot faster. I think it's an incredibly well acted movie. DiCaprio wasn't nominated, I understand, but he really was fantastic in the movie. So was Robert De Niro. I think De Niro's performance, people are like, yeah, it's Robert De Niro, of course he did good. But when you really look at his performance, the way he's subtly delivering some really disturbing lines. Lily Gladstone was also phenomenal in the movie. I hope she wins tomorrow. It's just a breakthrough performance. I know she's been in some stuff before, but this was truly her like look at me moment, and oh my god, it was one of the best look at me moments ever. She carries the movie, and she's not really in the movie as much as people think she is. When you look at the screen time percentages, I think her percentage is under 40 something. 60% of the movie she's not in, but she really does feel like the main character, and it's a smart move to make her lead actress, because it looks like she's gonna win tomorrow, which is crazy because she's actually not in the movie for a whole half of it, and it's 3.5 hours. That just shows the power of Lily Gladstone and how well she was able to command the force of this film. Martin Scorsese really did a fantastic job directing this. It's not necessarily something that we haven't seen him do before behind the camera, but him branching out and doing this like type of Western crime type feel movie while still keeping his Martin Scorsese themes in here is very skillful, but it doesn't feel forced either. It's a really well made movie, very well acted movie, and one I wouldn't actually mind watching again. Coming in at number 2 is Anatomy of a Fall. Anatomy of a Fall is one of the most gripping movies I saw last year. It's my second favorite movie of last year, and it's for a rightful reason. I think it's one of the best acted movies last year. Sandra Hulier, hope I said her name right, is fantastic. The kid actor, fantastic. His name is Milo something. Messi the dog, one of the best dog performances I have ever seen. Like, I don't know how they got that dog to do that. Like, what that dog did. Like, it's mind-boggling. Like, that dog is smarter than I am. Like, it's crazy. Genuinely, like, one of the best compliments I could give Anatomy of a Fall is how they directed that dog. It's truly genius. Justine Triet, I hope I said her name right, did a fantastic job writing and directing this movie. It's a movie where it doesn't feel like something is always happening, but it finds that right sauce to get you invested, even though you're not necessarily watching something particularly awe-inspiring like some of these other movies. You're watching scenes that you're very interested in seeing, stuff that you normally don't get to see in a movie, in types of like investigations, that type of stuff. The weird discussions that you don't really put in movies but are had in between the scenes. It really feels like it knew exactly when to start a scene and when to end it. It's a little bit on the long side. It's 2.5 hours of, a lot of talking. It's definitely a movie I still need to rewatch, which I haven't, but it's done nothing but age well. Because, like, a lot of this movie takes place in a courtroom with a lawyer, the most annoying lawyer ever, in a good way. And he talks really fast, and so I'm reading the subtitles. I'm like, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, what's happening? And so a rewatch would benefit with that. But obviously, it's not the movie's fault. It's just me not knowing German. So, or French. What language was it? French. It had to be French, not German. Sorry, just watched Zone of Interest and Sandra Julia. I got it mixed up. Anyways, Anatomy of a Fall is one of the most gripping court dramas I've ever seen in my life. It's a really well made movie. I could not recommend it enough. I am the only person, by the way, that I know that has seen Anatomy of a Fall, like personally. Like, I mean, I've talked to people like online that have watched the movie, but I've not met a single person, not even some of like my cinephile friends, have not watched this movie yet. And I am dying to talk about it with somebody. So any chance I have to talk about Anatomy of a Fall on this channel, I will most definitely take it. Yeah, if you're watching my movie, friends, watch Anatomy of a Fall. How much more do I have to preach? Okay. Anyways, coming in at number one, we all know it. It's Oppenheimer. It's one of the best movies Christopher Nolan has done, and he's my favorite director. And so that says a lot. It's winning Best Picture tomorrow. It's winning Best Director tomorrow. It's winning Best Supporting Actor. It's winning Best Actor. It's winning Best Cinematography. Editing, probably sound, but I'm going out on a limb and saying Zone of Interest. Yeah, it's a staggering masterpiece, and I mean, what else more can I say? It's Oppenheimer. It's done nothing but age well on rewatch. You know, the first time I watched this movie, I was just so overwhelmed by what was happening. I felt that 3 hour runtime because I just was like catching up with the movie because it's a very information heavy movie. And for me, who's not smart with science stuff at all, or like World War II stuff at all, I was like, okay, who this, what science place, and okay, bomb explode, you know. That was me watching it the first time, but Christopher Nolan's the only person to make me interested in a subject that I had no interest in at all, like reverse entropy or nuclear weapons and politics in the 1940s, stuff that just died as a 19-year-old. I'm just like, whatever. But Christopher Nolan finds a way to drag you in, and he drags you in by just doing a really good job at it. It's an incredibly well-made movie, and I pointed this out in my predictions that I did yesterday. I said, and it still cracks me up when I think about it. It's a very talky movie. They're doing a lot of talking. You know, there's a bomb that goes off, but you know, it's a lot of talking in a room. But yet this movie won't win screenplay. It's going to win a bunch of texts. That's what's really funny about this movie, because it just shows how good Christopher Nolan is. It's a screenplay this good. It's being overlooked because basically because they used IMAX cameras. I mean, like that's the basically the best way to put it. Jennifer Lame's editing here, some of the best, maybe the best edited movie I've seen in a long time. I want to say ever, but I don't like being hyperbolic. I want to say it's like the best edited movie ever because it just paces through that 3 hour runtime because that's what the movie needed to be to fit on IMAX reels, which is crazy to me. The way that they seamlessly edit from scene to scene and just somehow meet almost everything in the script, you're just like, how do they do it? You know, and when you learn about the production of this and how they had to basically speed up filming because they needed more money for the production design. You know, it's a lot of very interesting stuff that kind of should indicate that this movie was going to turn out as a mess, but it's the movie that gets Christopher Nolan his Oscar. You know, it's a very well made movie. It's a very interesting movie when you learn about its production. It's an inspiring movie when you learn even more about its production. The sheer scale of it, with the grand story of the politics that feels intimate but finds scale in that. That's something that only Christopher Nolan can do. This one didn't really play with time except for the counting down on the clocks and kind of going back and forth. That's the Best Picture nominees ranked. I'll put my Letterboxd ranking right there. It's locked right now, so people can watch this video and not just check my Letterboxd. I know some of you probably do it. Anyway, comment down below what your guys' ranking of the Best Picture nominees are. Our opinions are going to be different. I know there's some rankings on here that I said are pretty much I feel bad for, particularly Zone of Interest because I just watched that, but as I said earlier, Past Lives, Barbie, The Holdovers, American Fiction, and Poor Things are all kind of like an equal like 9 out of 10 for me. And so I feel like they can all kind of like interchange at any given moment. But if I had to do it the way I would want to, that's the way I would do it. Anyways, comment down below what you guys think of these nominees. Do you guys think these are a good set of nominees? Did the Oscars get it right? I was asked the other day, our award shows, do they actually get it right? And I thought about it and I said, oh, I think they 50% get it right. And that's the thing, is not everything's going to always align with your taste. So I noticed that, half of the movies that were nominated are in my top 10 of last year. And it feels kind of equal of like 5 out of 10 for each year. So Oscars don't necessarily get it right or wrong. It's just a mass vote. Yeah, let's just watch these award shows and have fun with it. Let's hope no one gets slapped tomorrow. So yeah, anyways, like, share, subscribe, and stuff like that. And adios.